Since its launch in 2005, Broad Street Review has sought to promote the exchange of viewpoints rather than any particular point of view. To that end, we welcome commentary from professionals and amateurs alike about the performing and visual arts, as well as any other field of interest to our eclectic group of contributors. The following interview was submitted to Broad Street Review, powered by Rep Radio.
Darnell Radford, and today I'm at the Drake. I'm in a conference room. There's many little, hidden spaces here at the Drake, and this is the one I haven't been in yet. But I'm here with Dany Guy, who is the director of operations of Interact Theater Company, and he is about to extend his reach. And I thought it would be really great to kind of sit and chat about your journey, your beginning to Interact and your transition now. Thought would make for a good conversation. So, Dany, welcome to Rep Radio.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about you. Who is Dany?
I guess if we're just speaking about my career, I graduated from Muhlenberg College, which is just about an hour and 20 minutes or so north of Philly. Mm-hmm. And it's funny how I ended up in here down in Philadelphia was basically because of Enchantment Theater Company. They were doing auditions at Muhlenberg for students who were just about to graduate, and they cast me in their national tour of Velveteen Rabbit, which was basically an extension tour of what they already had out, and 4 Muhlenberg alum were actually on that tour, mm-hmm. All of whom were stepping out. And so they cast me, as well as another Muhlenberg alum, and we got to go on tour for about 5 months, including the rehearsal period. And anyways, I made a lot of great friendships on that tour, one of which was Terry Brennan, who runs Tribal Fools, as well as Colleen Hughes, his partner. And they, along with Miranda Lipkin, who used to live in Philly, were kind of pushing me to come down to Philadelphia after we finished tour. They were like, it's a great city for theater. It had a lot going on. And I had visited Philly a decent amount when we were in school. And it was, I really enjoyed it, both as a space for art as well as it just felt like a great city that I could kind of conquer, unlike New York, which most of my fellow graduates went to. And growing up in the Boston area, I think I liked the smaller, easily accessible city. And it has a really great gay community, and so I was kind of turned on by that as well. And so I had applied to a bunch of internships all throughout the company, kind of looking at the time. I thought I wanted to be a director. I knew I didn't want to be an actor anymore because of the idea of having to always look for a new job, which probably makes sense as I leave Interact 8 years later.
Professional, independent contractors.
I do not envy them, but I really do admire the work that actors do, and designers and freelance people like yourself. And so I think it was a great opportunity. Basically, I got an offer to be what at the time was called a production intern at Interact, and Becky Wright hired me. And so I moved I had gone back home to Boston. I grew up in the suburbs, and I was there for about 10 months or so, or maybe closer to 6. But I was home after I finished my tour with Enchantment, got this internship, and moved here the day after Labor Day, about almost 8 years ago. And I was an intern for a season. And at the time, Interact didn't have a lot of structure to the internship program. It was kind of still in its infancies of figuring out what it really wanted to be. There was some structure, the interns would ASM a show. They would also work box office and help with front of house, and then just do some general admin stuff, as well as get to help with season selection, reading plays, and being a part of the conversation of what plays were going on next year. And I think that really was something that stood out to me about Interact, and something that I automatically loved, and has been really true to what Seth believes in, of getting the voices from everyone that's around him. He really wants the opinions. He knows that he's the artistic director and he gets to make the final decision, but he values and wants opinions from everyone.
Yeah.
And that kind of stood out to me. Anyways, at the end of the season, the person who was doing the box office management position was leaving, and Seth told me he wanted to hire me in that position because I had really shown a lot of interest in Interact and in the company, and he thought that I would be really good. And I was kind of hesitant at the time. I was still considering moving back to Boston. And I was taken with the idea of having a full-time job, which was exciting. But I told Seth, I was like, I don't really want to be a box office manager forever. I have kind of higher aspirations. And he was like, well, there's a lot of room to grow with the company, which was abundantly clear by my trajectory 8 years later.
Yeah.
So I started at what was basically box office and group sales manager. And by my second full-time season, I was production managing because Interact didn't have a production manager at the time. And that was where my interest really lied at the time. And something that I've always really loved, of that in between artistic and administrative, and really helping to see the play come together. I'm a very organized person, as any of my friends could tell you. They joke that I'm the one that organizes us to do anything. So I took over production management, and I kind of just continuously took things.
That's a trait of most stage managers.
Yeah.
It's like, hey guys, I don't have a car, but there's somewhere an hour and a half I think we all need to go. I've already coordinated it. Who's going to drive?
That's exactly my...
Got the papers. Everybody checked off. Why are we signing into the car, the checklist? Don't worry.
Venmo me $20 and I'll just buy the tickets. We're going. It's literally my life. So I started with Interact back in 2009. That was my intern year, and then within my first year I also took over the apprenticeship program. Having just gone through it, I kind of saw all of its problems and all of its benefits, and I would say that's kind of if nothing else, the stamp that I'm leaving Interact with is, I think, a really strong apprenticeship program, if only evidenced by the fact that there are so many graduates of the program who are now a part of the community and working and producing, and that's, I think, the biggest thing that I am most proudest of my work at Interact. And so I have been with the company now. I just completed my 8th season, and I stepped up from doing group sales and box office and managing our apprentices, and then took on production management, and then kind of when Annalisa started working with us, and we had kind of a changeover of a marketing director. The marketing director took on more of the front of house stuff, and I kind of really became this glue between Annalisa and Seth. And then in 2012, I guess it would have been, I had applied to grad school because I was kind of looking for a change, but there wasn't really, I didn't see a clear next step for me. But I knew I wanted to further my career, and so I ended up going to Drexel and doing their arts administration program, which I really liked. And I started that, I guess, in the fall of 2013. And it was just a really amazing opportunity. And I think at the time I had started thinking okay, well, I'm going to do this, and then that'll probably lead me to my next job, thinking that I wasn't sure if I would stay at Interact. But then in the middle of grad school, Interact decided that we were going to embark on this capital campaign and build the Drake. And that became really shiny and exciting, and a reason to definitely stick around.
Yeah.
And so in that transition of the last 2.5 years, we embarked on this really exciting journey to get into the Drake. And I kind of took over the role of project manager, for lack of a better term, of coming day to day, seeing what was going on with the construction. And Seth and Annalisa were kind of the big picture thinking, and Seth and Annalisa were also in charge of raising the money. And so I didn't have to deal with any of those worries, but I was kind of the one coming in and making sure that we were still on timeline, which we never were, and trying to stay within the budget, which we also never were. But it was an amazing learning experience and a really just like a great opportunity. And I cannot thank Seth enough for everything that he's kind of taught me and like given me the opportunity. I think he just always was like, he knew if he gave it to me that I would take it on and run with it. So anyways, so we completed the Drake, and opened up the space last January 2016, and we completed the season. And then in the fall, Annalisa actually left, and I kind of took over the position of interim managing director when she left. And a lot of people were like, okay, well, are you going to be the next managing director for Interact? And I kind of wasn't really sure of like what that would be and what that meant. And someone told me this analogy, and I think it kind of really holds true. In the Army, when they give you a promotion, they actually move you to a different unit. And the reason they do that is because they know that there are going to be a lot of relationships and bonds with those people that you have worked with for X amount of times. And sometimes because of that, they know that there might be a struggle if someone is all of a sudden promoted to be a leading officer or whatnot. And so I think that analogy some ways like works with how my trajectory of ending up at 11th Hour came about. Seth has been an amazing mentor and just like amazing to work with, and has just really been kind of a father figure within my career. But I think for Interact and for Interact's next step, it was really sort of important that their new blood get in here and we find a new managing director to really take on that position. I think in any organization, it's always good to have new and get new ideas and new creativity. And with such a small staff, it's always like hard. And so I was kind of unsure of if I was interested or not in the position. And then in the early fall, it was probably like February or something, my really good friend Nate Renner Johnson he was looking at job postings and stuff for himself, actually. He just started at Delaware Theater Company as their new production manager. Okay. But anyways, he and I went to college together, and he actually stage managed the production of Xanadont that I directed. And he knew how much I loved musicals, and like that aside, like I have kind of two like passions of theater. Like one is like really like saying something theater, which is basically what Interact is, of like having a production that says something and that you can talk about and is really pushing your audience to think about something. And then I also, like most young gay men, grew up on musicals, and that was kind of like where I had like found myself.
I like to go camping too, so let's find a balance on stage.
So anyways, Nate saw this posting, and he immediately forwarded it to me and was like, this is your next job. You need to go do this. You need to apply to this. And I was super excited about it the second I saw it, because 11th Hour had rented from us. One of my things I didn't mention, one of my responsibilities for the majority of my time at Interact was also managing our facilities and managing all of our rentals. And 11th Hour had rented from us a few times. And so I got to meet a lot of the staff through that as their basically rental rep, and I always loved working with them. I always loved when we had 11th Hour in the space, because they were not only were they like great productions and great art to go see, but they were wonderful to work with. Everyone that works at 11th Hour is just like super friendly, super nice, and it felt really kind of similar to how it is working at Interact, where it's just like a really welcoming environment, which I think is pretty true of most of the Philadelphia theater community. But anyways, I saw this posting, and I was just really excited, and so I immediately applied, and I met with Mike and Kate for my first interview, and they seemed very excited and genuine, because we already had this kind of relationship, having me worked with them as kind of their rental person, and they offered me the job, which I got, and have been sort of in transition now, and I'm really excited to kind of take the helm with 11th Hour, because they're in this really exciting growing place where myself and Mike are going to be 11th Hour's first full-time staff, which I think will really be an exciting change for 11th Hour and help them grow as a company and really push to do new and bigger things. I think when I was in grad school, they talk a lot about like the evolutional cycle of a organization and like where you like to be. Some people really like to be in like startup companies and like have that, and some people really like to be in like a fully established organization where like they don't have to worry about anything. There's like a lot already going on, and there's kind of like a middle section of like the growth period. And I think for both Interact and 11th Hour, like that's kind of where my career has been in, and I really like that, where it's like the company's established, they're not a baby, they know what they're doing, there's things going on, there's definitely systems in place, but there's clearly a trajectory of growth and ability, and there's something like exciting going on. And I think with 11th Hour, there's just so much new and exciting for them. We're going to be doing a world premiere musical this coming year called Big Red Sun. And then we also have another project in the pipeline of new work. And so it's exciting that I get to go from doing Interact's new work to now doing new musicals as well. So I still kind of have that new development portion under my wing, which is always cool and exciting and terrifying.
Is there any part of all the productions that Interact has done, and all the I guess it's not too far of a fetch, considering the various hats you've worn over time. I think on the outside it always seems like a musical is a leap, because you're adding extra things. Like now you got a music director.
Yeah.
But you sort of have the same thing, but it's kind of like two separate plays kind of in one to come together as this musical. Is there any part of this role, like sometimes we look at these job descriptions and we have to really jog our minds to say, wait, I've done bits and pieces of that. But sometimes a job description has this sort of expectation that makes you sort of second guess that, oh wait, I've run a bunch of fringe shows, or I've gotten these shows up and successfully closed them and reconciled and everything. You can do this. Was any part of that nervous in thinking about, or did you really need your friend to tell you this is the job for you?
I mean, I think it was more, he was just like, he just saw the posting first and was like, this is where you should go on to next. I mean, there are definitely, when I was reading the job description, like anyone, like you have this like, okay, this is totally right up my alley, it's perfect, and then you kind of like have a moment of like self-doubt, like when you're putting like, well, what if they really want this type of person? Or like, for me, I've done a lot of like the event side of development, but grant writing is not something that I've ever had like a lot of experience with. And I was kind of like, I saw in the description like, oh, there's no listing about like development. I wonder if that's just like something they're going to throw in or like not do. And
by the way, we need you to finish these 4 grants by February.
And I'd be like, oh crap, maybe I'm not the right person for you to hire. But conveniently for me, and how this position I think really worked out for me is like Kate Galvin is 11th Hour's grant writer and does an amazing job with that. And so kind of like where my weakness would be in anything that I think I could ever do as a managing director, someone was already kind of filling that void, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for me to continue to learn with all of that. But yeah, I think aside from my work at 11th Hour, having worked with Tribe of Fools, Simpatico, and Shakespeare and Clark Park, all these like really smaller entities where they don't really have staff, having to kind of in all of those shows I've worked as basically a production manager, but when you're a production manager for a small company like that, you often end up filling in as a lot of like admin roles. And the people that are running those companies, Kitson, Alan at the time, and Terry are all like wonderful people who I think the reason they hired me was because they knew they could rely on me and need that support. And I, because of how much I care about them, not just in a collegiate way, I also wanted to be a supportive team person. And so like I always would take on different things. And I think anything that I didn't learn already from Interact, I probably learned from production managing for any one of those shows, because there's just always so many little things that fall through the cracks and that you have to kind of help when you're working in a small organization. I think that will easily translate to where 11th Hour is right now in their life cycle of the organization. But yeah,
I guess there's a lot of understanding the inner workings of a new company anyway. So you can walk in with a level of experience, but there's still that. Okay, I need to understand where you keep coffee.
Yeah.
And why is it in that, just in my other place, we kept it in a different. Start thinking about all the little things, but then you factor in the similarities and you realize, oh, wait, I do have it.
Yeah.
There's a good balance of things
here. And I think you're right. Also, I haven't really worked on a musical in a long time, but I will say working with Tribe of Fools, that having so much dance and choreography in their stuff is really kind of that. I think is very translatable of dealing with that person. And then Shakespeare and Clark Park, even though there's it's not a musical, there's the 2 summers that I did it, there was kind of live music that was happening, and just because you're outdoors, you have to deal with mixing and sound systems in a very different way than, say, doing a show in a black box or a theater. And so I think that those are definitely some things that'll help me as I start to learn how an actual professional production of a musical happens. But I'm sure there's a lot that I'm just going to be oh, I didn't think about this thing, or have any idea about that.
But it's hard to do that if you don't have the acute focus on the particular role as well, because when you're hovering above it, you have an idea of the thought process that's going into this sound design or this lighting design or just in general running, cue management and things like that. But then once you're in it, there's a specific focus that you only get from tuning out the rest.
Yeah.
So, I always, I used to say, starting out when I first moved to Philadelphia, that my goal was to be well-rounded in theater. I want to understand the conversations and the conflicts and the issues that go on in the box office. At the same time, I want to understand what the production team has to deal with, and I want to understand the mindset of my actors in terms of interpreting my vision. So I think being around it kind of sets so many of us up for so many of these roles, but it's not always the thought process of someone who, went to school for theater, pursued for the most part, a general theater degree, to think about the various roles being a role that they would ultimately settle into. Did you ever see yourself becoming a managing director?
I had no idea that's what I wanted to do. I started college and I wanted to be an actor, and then also was in dance as well. I was a dance minor, and I had directed once in high school, and I liked that, and so that kind of picked that up. And by the end of my senior year, I got the honor to, as I mentioned, direct Antidote, which was part of the main stage season at Muhlenberg. And at the time, I was like, oh, I want to be a director. Really, that's what I want to do. And I had gotten this job with Enchantment. I was like, this is a great opportunity for no other reason than I get to go see the world and or the country rather, and I get to be working in theater doing what I love. My big argument with my mom when I was going to college and when I was leaving, she was like, "You're never gonna find a job," and then I rolled out of college with a job, and she's like, "Okay, I was wrong. I'll eat my words." But so I did this internship with Interact because at the time it's very similar to what you're saying. I wanted to be well-rounded. I was like, I want to know how everything works because I think a director should know how everything works. And it was somewhere in my internship, after watching Seth direct Chad Deity, just watching that process where I kind of learned, I was like, I really admire directors and I like this idea, but I think what I really I like control because I'm a control freak, and I like being organized and solving people's problems. I like being the person that whether it's said or not, people are thankful that the problems are getting solved and someone is there doing it. And I think I realized somewhere in my internship with Interact, I was like, I don't think I want to be a director because there's too much creativity that's like asked of that person. And at the time, I felt like I don't know that I'm that like a creative enough person, and I don't think that's completely true. But I do think what I kind of realized in retrospect is like I wanted to be a production manager because I wanted to do the melding of helping have impact on the art while also helping facilitate and taking what I thought were all these brilliant artists and creative types, helping them make their kind of dreams come true as best as possible in the limitations of time, money, and just capacity. And I think stepping into this role as managing director at 11th Hour, I think it's still it's very similar to that. It's taking, I think, what the art that we believe in and what exciting stuff is coming down the pipeline and the different programming that we have going on and really helping to facilitate making that happen and kind of seeing what the overall vision is of the company. I think that's what I like most about theater and kind of this side of admin that I've ended up. I really enjoy working on production stuff, like being told to go paint something and and helping with load-in is always kind of fun, just like using your hands, which is I think why I got into production management, and I probably will do much less of that in this new role with 11th Hour, but I think that having just that capacity to help and being just a general person who's always like all hands on deck, how do we make this happen? How do we find creative solutions to get from point A to point B is just who I am. And I think their 11th Hour was looking for that, and that's why they hired me. Yeah. And I'm just excited, I think, to have something new and to be working with awesome people and to get to stay within the theater community. And 11th Hour is actually going to be doing all of our concerts at the Drake next year, so it's not like I'm going very far.
Yeah. So, and you're transitioning from an organization with sort of a high expectation of work, or to another equally. It's excellent. We could say excellent because they both won awards. Production company. So I guess that's not necessarily a lateral move, but you're kind of coming along with the same sort of sense of professionalism. But you have this unique experience from here that you'll be able to carry there while you're learning and continuing to grow.
Yeah.
So you wear all these creative hats, but how do you keep yourself grounded? How do you find the balance of, when can you turn this off, and how do you relax, and how do you, what do you do that sort of gives you, the sense of clarity to kind of get back into this and give it your all?
I would say, as any of my friends can tell you, I'm a very social person. I'm not someone, my roommate could tell you, I'm rarely ever home unless it's because there are people in my house. Mm-hmm. I just like to go out and do things. The two biggest things that I really enjoy the most to kind of like give myself that break is I started getting in, after I finished grad school, I got into recreational sports. So I play a lot of stuff for Stonewall. I do volleyball, dodgeball, sand volleyball, kickball. I was just down in D.C. this past weekend doing the national tournament for Stonewall for kickball, and then I also play flag football, all LGBT leagues.
So anybody out there saying there's no time, that's an excuse.
Yeah, I think it's all about like how you want to use your time and what you want to make of it. For me, like playing these recreational sports, like at the end of the day, like any given game, like I want to win and I want to do the best that I can, but I also like recognize like it's adult kickball, like how serious can you really take this? And most of the people that I on teams with are all really fun, great people, and so there's a sense of camaraderie and like going and grabbing drinks afterwards, and I've made a lot of friendships through doing recreational sports. And kind of like the other thing, which a lot of these people bleed over to, is I also have a weekly game night with a bunch of my friends on once a week where we just hang out and play board games and get a few bottles of wine and cook or order Grubhub, and it's a nice way to like unwind and kind of like take your mind off of things, and it's kind of similar in that sense of like you have this thing to focus on of like playing a board game, and like of course you want to win, but like you're with your friends, and if you lose, like then just drink some more wine. It'll all be fine. But yeah, I think
unless you're playing Monopoly, then it's purely cutthroat.
It is. We've only played Monopoly once, and I had took an Instagram video of someone, like no one actually flipped the board, and like we were waiting for it to happen, but we were like, we can't not do this, so we took a video of the person who won just like flipping.
It's probably my favorite board game, but it is the most emotional. I don't know why. You do realize we don't own any of this.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, but I wanted Park Place. I have plans for that.
Well, and there's similar games that have that, like Settlers of Catan is one that is one of my favorite games, and it's just like it's very similar. It's kind of like Settlers of Catan. I describe it as like if Monopoly and Risk like had a baby. It's like a little shorter, but it's like similar in that way of like trying to like attack and like take over space. Which I think is why I love it. But it's that same thing of like, they're like, no, I need all these things. Why are you ruining my life?
Definitely.
And then the game's over.
Even though you're transitioning, you won't be too far away from Interact. But what will you miss about being a part of the Interact team?
That's a great question. I don't know yet because I haven't done it yet, but I think it'll be really different. There is a sense of responsibility. I think even in this like interim role as managing director, because of my relationship with Seth, it always felt like, well, Seth's the boss. He's the one in charge. He's the one that like, if there's a huge problem, like, yeah, I'm going to help him solve it, and I'm going to do the best that I can. But like at the end of the day, it's Seth's problem. And I think moving to 11th Hour. It's all on me. Like, yes, Mike and the other staff are definitely going to be there, but as the like head administrative person, it's kind of all on me to fix any problems and figure out like what needs to happen. What do we need to do? And so that's probably like maybe a little thing that I'll miss is like having like some ability of checking out of full responsibility.
Yeah.
Which is also exciting and definitely a cool change.
Your job is to make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to be the one to do it. You can point somebody towards it. I'm on it. I got like 3 guys on it.
But on a more sentimental note, I think the people here, this building, the Drake, like a lot of sweat and blood of mine kind of went into it. And so even though 11th Hour will get to perform here, just not coming to this like area, Center City, every day will definitely be a change because 11th Hour is in way deep South Philly. And there isn't as much like stuff around there. And just like the people, I mean, seeing Seth, seeing Kitson, having Chucho, Seth's dog in the office.
Yes.
And just the general camaraderie. I think working at 11th Hour, because we won't be in an actual like performing arts facility, there's just less circulation of people.
Yeah.
And like and that can be good and bad in different ways. There won't be crazy patrons coming in or random strangers off the street who you're like, why are you here? What are you doing? Oh, you just want to use the bathroom? Yeah, you can do that, but like maybe leave after. But yeah, I think this building is just like it was such a brainchild of Seth's, and then so much energy and time went into it from me and him and Annalisa and getting it open, and I think it's such a value to the community. And so to not get to walk in the doors every day will definitely be something different. And as I've said, just the people that I've gotten to work with here are all so wonderful. I owe so much to Seth and Annalisa, who no longer works here, but just not having those people. And it's one of those games, it feels like you're starting a new school where you have to make friends with new kids and whatnot, like you've gone off to college. And it's exciting but scary all at the same time. And like, what will those relationships be? How will they change? And learning the dynamics of how you interact with everyone is definitely like a big change. So. Yeah.
But now you'll be working out of a school. Right?
Yeah.
Because they're in the building with
1812, and Exile just moved in as well, so we have great neighbors.
Yeah, I think that's a great space. It's too bad that there's no performance space in there, because it seems like there's enough to, we'll take this and make it a studio.
Yeah.
Can't you just paint a room black and that's how it works, right? No.
Totally.
Let's see. So I was thinking back when I had escaped to New York for a little bit. I had studied arts administration then, and having that sort of the ability to hover above everything instead of having the direct focus on all of it allowed you to just see things in from a different perspective. And even though you won't be a part of Interact anymore, you're still part of this community. So you are still part of Interact. And I think it's really cool about this community when you walk out of certain doors, you don't feel like a stranger anymore because you've come through the stage door. Yeah. So what it's like back there. What goes into putting all those things together. So I think, while it's really great for us to stay in places as long as possible, it's actually kind of cool to be able to have a familiarity with multiple spaces and not just as a patron, which, in my opinion, I think adds to a much greater appreciation about the community as a whole and everything that gets done. You just say, because when I was there, we did such a great thing, and it's so good to see this continuing and this new thing that was added. I've got ideas now, or you're on a different level where now you're making so many more of those decisions. Now you have that opportunity to be in the parts that put those key elements in place that we're all going to walk away from, a space that 11th Hour has, and make comments about the things you've implemented there as well. Yeah. So I think that'll be really cool. Do you have any sort of particular, do you have a particular charge, or is there something specific that you'd like to do in your new role, or has that not really been thought out yet?
I mean, the first kind of charge I think that they gave me just within the job interview process. I know one of my big goals is to kind of I think, like any other arts organization, really help us boost our earned revenue versus our contributed. I think 11th Hour has a lot of great supporters and is doing really well for our size organization in that respect. But I think we want to, like anyone else, figure out how do we get more ticket sales, how do we get more subscriptions, how do we convert those people, and how do we get more people in the door? Because I think 11th Hour has a really great niche in the fact that we are the only company only producing musicals, and there aren't a ton of musicals that are happening in the city. Yeah. And so I think it's just great to have that ability to kind of share that with the community, and I think letting more people know, because I think in general people love musicals. And so I think it's just great to have that opportunity, and I want to get 11th Hour to be more of a household name.
And all that. So what's the wind down look like? Yeah,
I mean, it's funny you say that. There's definitely that sense of senior slide of you see a problem, you're like, well, I'm never gonna have to deal with that again. Or that's someone else's decision to make.
Why don't we table that till September?
But no, it's been. I mean, I think because of the genuine respect and love I have for this company and for Seth and everyone who works here, I wanted to make sure that the transition was as easy as possible. So basically July and the first week of August is my wind down. And basically first week of July I sat down with Jason and Aaron and Lauren, Tracy, our production manager, and Aaron's our marketing development assistant, and Jason, our marketing director, and just was they were here are all the things that happen that you don't think about that you do, food, where do you get food for opening night, or all that stuff that's just I don't think about because I've been doing it for 8 years, and I just I clearly have a system, but I don't need to tell anyone when I'm the one doing it.
Yeah.
And so we kind of just created like a big list so that I can pass all of those batons. And I think Interact's sort of doing a restructuring. They're not going to rehire director of operations. Instead, what they're doing is we're hiring this managing director to fill what Annalisa's position was, and then we're going to hire a development associate, which I think is where Interact needs to put some dollars to help grow the company. But anyways, as kind of I'm winding down, we kind of have broken down like what are all of my responsibilities that I've been doing, both Dany before Annalisa left, and then like what I've been doing since Annalisa left in this interim role as managing director. And so just kind of parceling out, making sure that there are kind of like SOPs, how to do things best as possible. And I've told Seth outside of my hours at 11th hour, I'll come because Anne, who's starting as the new managing director, won't start until September 1st. I'll come back, do a few hours just to help make sure the bookkeeping is happening, and then once she's actually here, do some training hours just to try to give her as much. And luckily, I'm only a phone call away, and I've joked with them like they can text me at least for the first 3 months.
I know you always give them a buffer. After that, I don't work here anymore.
Yeah, but it's it's funny because I think when you. This is true of any job, but I think when you've been at a job for a really long time, there's so many things that become natural habit that you don't think about them. You don't think like, oh, yeah, I do that thing just instinctually at this point. And people have joked a lot, which is very sweet of them to say, but people have said, like, oh, you're the glue that holds together Interact. And, like, as trying to be as modest as possible, while that may be true, it's like you don't think about all the little things that connect to every department when you kind of have been at a company for so long. And so kind of being able to parcel out that stuff as best as possible. And I'm sure we can make the most extensive list possible of like, here are all the things that I do, and here's how to do them, and here's where you go. And no matter what, there's going to be things that I forgot or we didn't think about because you just don't know. And there's things that like under fire that you just instinctually do when production's happening or when something with the patron happens. So we're doing it as best as possible. And what was really nice when I was transitioning to 11th hour is Jenna, who is the outgoing managing director, had a bunch of training hours with me to kind of go over things. And similarly, there have already been some things where it's like, oh, this like password won't work correctly for whatever reason, and so I need to like reset it and do it anyways. And figure it out on my own. But it's I think a game for any company, and I feel generous with my time as best as I can be to help Interact with this transition because of how much they gave me. But I think there is a lot of like people are just like, okay, it's 2 weeks. I'll do as best as I can to give you as much information. And like, no one's ever going to have the next person in line for that job. So it's very rare that you really get to train the new person. And so I think because I'll be in the area, because I'm in the community, I feel kind of a implication and desire to help 11th hour bring in the new managing director and give them as many things that I can share and bestow upon them.
Do you have a plaque anywhere in here?
A plaque? I don't think so, no.
I think you should have a T-shirt that says, "It takes a Dany."
It's funny, there was an apprentice class who they made shirts that said, "Where's Dany?" Because that was always the like, "Where's Dany? I need this problem."
Yes. Well, it's been great to be in a way along this journey with you. I think you started here in 2009, and I launched Rep Radio in 2009.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember the elaborate entrance of Chad Deity. It was one of our earlier podcasts.
Really? That's awesome.
And that was the first time I was just like, I started thinking about the conversations going on in society with politics and so on, and I started thinking about, I wonder what Interact has to say about this, and all of the work that I've been able to experience here, I've walked out with a different sense of, I guess, observation in the world, and so I really appreciate the work that was brought to stage from here, and not just interact, but I think it's kind of cool when we can look back and see all of that, and you'll be able to look back and see I was part of that show and this show. Oh my God, Jihad Jones, that was so much fun. To see all these things, but now you get to be. Now you get to be at a new company, and you get to be attached to new productions. So, and that's all we ultimately want to do anyway.
Yeah.
To just, we keep making memories, but we keep building on our qualifications and our capabilities. And so best of luck in your new role.
Thank you.
Which will probably be old hat for you as soon as you get there. But it was great to chat with you and to go down this this trip down memory lane with you.
That's great.
And best of luck in your new role.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Want to get involved with Broad Street Review? Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, help keep us running and click Contribute to find out how. Connect with us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter at Broad Street Review. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.